Hey everybody, Adam here with Hometown Acres. Welcome back. Today we are going to build a budget scrap wood cart. Now if you're like me and you do a lot of DIY wood projects, inevitably you end up with a bunch of scrap left over from multiple different projects, and eventually it becomes so cumbersome that it takes up a whole corner of the shop. And what happens is over time you need to move this pile of wood to this side of the garage, and then you got to move from this side of the garage over to this side of the garage. And when you've got it like this, and you've got this much of it, it can start to take 20, 30 minutes to move because you can only move a couple pieces at a time. So what I want to do today is build a scrap wood cart to keep all of these scraps organized and on wheels. So if I need to move it around the shop, it doesn't take a half an hour. I can just wheel the entire cart from one section to the other and be done with it. So this is the first project. We're getting to test out our new rolling base cabinet layout table, and it's going to work perfect for this because as we're building the base of this rolling lumber cart, we want the base to be perfectly flat. So we've got the melamine top on it, which is going to allow us to lay this base out and have it be perfectly flat. If you're not familiar, I'm drilling pocket holes to attach everything for these butt end joints. This is what pocket holes look like if you've never seen it before. And then we're going to go ahead and snug up all those joints nice and tight with some clamps, and then check it for square before we start firing in those pocket screws. So now we're going to go ahead and start ripping down some of the sheet goods for this project. And in the past, whenever I've run my track saw, I've always just supported it with roller jack stands or something like that. And I've seen people use these insulation foam boards, and I've always wanted to do it. I just never actually went out and bought a piece specifically for running the track saw. And now I finally did, and it works awesome. It completely supports the board. You don't have to worry about overcutting. I do set the depth of the blade, to match the thickness of the material so that I'm just barely cutting into the foam, but it's nice to have it completely supported. And then you can see I'm going in here, pre-drilling holes, and then countersinking them, and then firing in the screws to finish up the base. And then we're gonna flip it over here, and we'll start adding some casters to the bottom side. Now we're using 4 swivel casters here, and you might notice I'm not putting them all the way out on the corners. That's because this is a 6.5 foot span, and I wanted to shorten the span in between the casters. Now another thing that I could have done would have been to have put a third set in the middle, but speaking from experience, our mobile workbench that we built has 6 casters, and it's just harder to change directions with 6 casters versus 4. So that's why I wanted to stick with just 4. So now that the mobile base is done, we've got to build 4 of these. Well, 3 more. I already built one. So you may have noticed there I switched from the jigsaw to the circular saw just because it was giving me a cleaner cut. The jigsaw was kind of giving me a lot of tear out. But if you're thinking about building one of these for yourself, you could honestly probably skip this step. This is only going to be if you have shorter material you're going to be storing in this. If you have longer material, it's obviously just going to rest on those cross bracing members and you won't need to deck it out like we did here. So at this point, I've got one final thing I want to add to this lumber storage cart, and that is a couple of vertical storage racks. You'll see what I mean here in a second. And I figured might as well make a partition there so we actually have two separate vertical storage racks.
All right, so here's a quick tip for any of you guys out there with these squeeze style quick clamps, and that is if you ever want to use it as a spreader. So in this situation right here, I've got all of my marks lined up on the bottom, but this piece of plywood was bowed a little bit, and when I sucked it into the back cross members here, it twisted it in just a little bit.
Basically, my gap at the top is narrower than my gap at the bottom.
So I need to spread this out a little bit to get it to line up with our face panel there. So in order to do that, all you have to do, unscrew, and these are the Harbor Freight ones, unscrew the top, switch it to the other side, like so, screw it back in, and now you have yourself a spreader. And so I'm just going to spread this out until that is flush with the outer board that I want it to be, and then screw it in. Handy little tip I thought I'd share with you guys. All right, so there it is, the scrap lumber storage cart. As you can see, you've got plenty of storage on both sides. This side is mainly going to be for leaning full sheets up against the A-frame here. If you're curious, that's about a 4-degree angle from bottom to top, so that it has enough pitch to keep your full sheets of plywood and whatever other sheet goods you have from tipping over and falling out. Same thing on this side. Dimensions on the bottom, I believe, was 12 inches in between, and up top was 5.5 inches. And then, as you can see, there's additional storage for longer boards, scraps that go inside the A-frame. And then this side here would be for any off-cut sheet goods, anything less than, a full sheet. And then we have some upright vertical storage. So you could put boards facing straight up and down as long as they didn't hit the ceiling. Or what I envision using this for will be some dowel rods or some shorter things that once the middle A-frame gets full, I've got some vertical storage there as well. So the only thing we have left to do now is to get this thing loaded up, get all of our scrap wood cleaned up inside this cart, mobilize it, and then clean up the disaster we have here in the shop. All right, guys, there is the finished mobile scrap lumber cart. I am very happy with how this turned out. The only thing is, though, it is no slouch to push around. I mean, like I said before, it's only on 4 casters, but this is a heavy load for just 4 casters. I think each one of those casters are rated for 330 pounds. So what is that? Just a little bit over 1,300 pounds is what those casters are rated for. And now, granted, I don't have a smooth concrete finish in here. We've got a rough broom finish in this shop, so that makes it a little bit more challenging. But I'll tell you what, this was just one of those projects that I had been wanting to do for years, and I finally had enough. As you can tell, we're getting ready to finish the 4th wall in here with the shiplap paneling like we did on the rest of the shop. And with gearing up for that project, I used to have all of this lumber stored on that wall over there, and then I moved it over here for a different project, and then I had to move it again over here. And I was like, I'm not moving it all. I'm either going to burn it or I'm finally going to build this cart. And we finally built the cart, and I'm glad we did, because now this is not going to be a problem anymore. If I need to move it around the shop, it's as simple as pulling this cart around, moving it over here. I can now pull the side-by-side in and out. That garage door is not blocked anymore. I'll probably keep this on that garage door now that it's mobile, because I can keep it tucked up against the garage door, and then if I need to use it, like I said before, I can move it out of the way, pull something in if I need to work on something. So this cart has way more benefit than just being mobile here within the shop. It's also a lot more organized, as you can tell. And what I found was, with everything just piled, leaned up against the garage door, I had things in here that I didn't even know I had now that I have it organized. And I had stuff in here I could have used to build this cart. Like if you look, I had some of that 1/4 inch plywood material that we used to build the shelves, or to make the flat board for the top of the shelf. And so I went out and bought more, even though I had it, because I didn't know that I had it. And so now I can see everything in this cart, and it's all kind of organized by what it is. You know, scrap sheet goods, some dimensional lumber, some hardwoods, full length sheet goods. So it's just going to be a lot better to know what you have and kind of keep an inventory of what you have and what you might still need to buy. The other benefit is, not only is it now mobile here within the shop, it's basically on a pallet now. So if I needed to remove it from the shop, say I've got some big project going on in here and this is just taking up too much space, I can come in here with the pallet forks and the tractor and remove it from the shop and go put it in the garage to the house or something like that. So a lot more benefit than just being mobile here within the shop. Speaking of picking this entire cart up with the pallet forks and the tractor, that does remind me of one final finishing touch I want to add to this to make it complete, and that would be some kind of safety chain that you could loop around the front of all of your sheet goods on this side and your sheet goods on this side. Because if you went to go pick this up with a tractor and you have it off kilter even just a little bit, everything's going to fall either forwards or backwards or off. So that's one last thing I want to do, is add some kind of chain that can kind of lock everything in from falling. It's good to roll around on flat ground, but the second you go to pick it up, I feel like you'd toss everything. Now, every time we do a project like this, I call them Doug projects, right? It's not something that you, how do I want to say this? You're not building something to go out and use it doing something else. You're building it. It's a project to make all future projects easier, if that makes sense. This is not something that is a tool I'm going to be using to go cut firewood or something like that. It's literally just for organizational purposes. But every time I do a project like this, you know, it kind of sucks in the beginning because it's a big time commitment. And, you know, the most people will say, who has time to do something like that? And realistically, this probably took a day and a half with filming, maybe 8 to 12 hours, something like that. And so it is a big time commitment. But here's my argument to that is, once you have it done, now moving this scrap lumber around and organizing it and storing it is no longer a problem for the rest of the time that I have this shop. So it's a day and a half worth of pain for a lifetime of benefit. That's the way I see it. And all the stuff that we've done here in the shop, you know, a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, every time I go to use whatever it was that I did, I'm always so happy that I took the time to do it. Case in point, the number one thing I can think of is the quick disconnects that we did for our dust collection system. That was another 6 to 8 hour project. But now every time I use my dust collection system, it just brings a smile to my face. And I have a feeling this scrap lumber storage cart is going to do the same thing. Now, I do need to give credit where credit is due. I did not come up with the design for this lumber storage cart. I saw this on another YouTube channel called Fix This, Build That. He is a pretty popular woodworking YouTube channel, and he actually sells plans to a lot of the stuff that he builds, including this cart. Now, I didn't buy the plan. I was kind of able to piece it together based on watching the video and getting some rough dimensions. So this is not exactly what he made, but it's close. But if you're interested, he has exact cut dimensions, cut angles, all the information you would need to build the exact cart that he did. Plus, his video was probably better put together than mine was. So I will leave a link in the description below to anybody that wants to go see a very detailed video on how to build something like this. Anyways, guys, I think that's going to about wrap this one up. Let me know in the comments below if you've got a pile of scrap lumber that's been sitting in the corner of your garage for umpteen years, or if you're a welder fabricator and you've got angle iron and square tubing and 4x8 sheets of, you know, steel laying around in your shop that you want to get organized and make it mobile. I'd love to hear from you. Would this be something you could use? I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you did, give me a big thumbs up, click that subscribe button, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.